film number 6 and the second film on AD converters. The last film was about flash converters, but now we'll cover the ramp converters. And we have the block diagram shown here. And let's try to explain how the block diagram works. First, we have a counter. A counter is a device that when it's given a clock pulse on the input, it counts. So it will give binary values. You have here 8 bits, but let's say that I only had 3 bits. A counter for each clock pulse, it would go up 1 step. So for each clock pulse, it would go up 1 step, like this, for each clock pulse. So you present a higher and higher and higher binary number on this side, and that is sent to a DAC, digital analog converter. So what you get here on the output from that one, since this side has an increasing number, that would create a ramp, a voltage that goes up, 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 like that. Now that is presented to an op-amp connected as a comparator. And a comparator means, that's just with a flash, that it simply checks if V in is larger than the voltage that came from the DAC here, the digital analog converter. And if that condition is true, it will give a high. If that condition is false, it will give a low. And if that one, if the V in is larger, then you'll get a high. So you get a high here. And you see, if you send it here, you send it to a small ring. That ring means inverter. So which means that the load here becomes active actually not as a response to a high, but as a response to a low, because of that little ring. So this one here is actually waiting for a low. So when a low comes in, that means that the condition is false, which means that the signal here is lower than the signal here, which basically means that the counting ramp that we have on the output from the DAC has finally stepped above the V in. So at that point, the output here changes to a low, and this one becomes active. And also, this, which means basically that you reset the counter back to 0 again and start counting again. So that is what this here does. On the other side here, the same signal goes there to a so-called SRG, which is a storage register, which means when this one is presented with a low, due to the ring, this one is activated at low, and low means that the data you have here is presented to the outside here. And then the voltage drops again, which means that the condition on the op-amp is not true anymore, and this storage register holds that level on the outputs here until the next time the ramp crosses over. So therefore it basically counts the steps upwards like that until it the ramp is equal to, or actually passes, the green analog input here. When they pass, the ramp goes down to 0, start counting again, down, start counting again, down, start counting again, and so on. for each time the ramp passes the green analog input. And for each time the ramp passes the green analog input, the data is sent through this sRG block here from this side over to the outside, and it's held there until the next time the ramp passes the green analog input. So the binary output here is a result of the point where the ramp crosses the analog input. Now you see here from this graph, when the voltage is rather high, the conversions takes longer time than when the conversion or the input voltage is low. So the time it takes to do the conversion is not the same for high voltages as to low voltages. So that's a drawback. We really want the converter that takes the same amount of time every time. So this ramp version of an AD converter is not very popular actually. What is used is a so-called Successive Approximation AD converter, and that is what will be presented in next film, but it's really based on the idea here of the ramp converter, but there's a small difference which we will look at, which makes the converter takes the same amount of time every time it converts.